recorded.
Good morning, and thanks for joining for this presentation on trending scams so far in 2022 that have been reported in Colorado. My name is Mark Fetterhoff. I am with the AARP Elder Watch. And for those of you who are not familiar with AARP Elder Watch, it is a partnership between AARP and the Colorado Attorney General's Office. It's been around for over 20 years now, and what we do is have a volunteer staffed call center, as well as do education and outreach presentations, both virtual and in person across the state of Colorado on frauds and scams, as well as financial literacy. All these presentations that we do are recorded so people can watch them at their leisure as well. And so again, thanks for joining today. And today what we're going to do is just talk a little bit about some trending frauds and scams that we're hearing about so far in 2022 that have been reported in Colorado, both to our helpline that's part of Elder Watch, that's also part of the Colorado Attorney General's Consumer Complaint Line, as well as our National Fraud Watch Network helpline. And so people in Colorado are submitting their complaints and their reports to both of those helplines, and so that's what we're going to be talking about today, is what we're hearing specifically on those lines. So yesterday, I pulled data from all the different reports we had in Colorado, and I'd say there's definitely, in terms of the victim reports that we've heard about, over 500 reports of the different types of frauds and scams that we're hearing about. Number one on that list is imposter business, and this is fueled largely by scammers who are posing as Amazon. And we'll talk a little bit more about that and other types of imposter businesses, scams that we're hearing about. Identity theft. Identity theft was the number one scam reported to our helplines, both in Colorado and nationally in 2021, and it remains to be one of the most reported scams. There are less reports of those unemployment insurance fraud claims that we heard about a lot in 2021. And so this is why identity theft was bumped down. But again, we'll talk a little bit more about identity theft in this presentation too. Tech support and computer virus scams still remain one of the most common scams we're hearing about. And I'm going to go over some of the variations of that type of a scam. Home repair and improvement usually remains in our top 5 list of scams for Elder Watch, and that remains consistent. And it's usually 2 different types of scams, whether it be someone who just has a problem with their contractor and is calling to figure out how to solve that problem. In addition to that, we hear of people who kind of end up with someone who might be a fly-by-night scammer who says that they can do a repair for their roof or a fence or something like that, and takes money in advance and then never comes back. So those are the kinds of home repair and improvement scams we hear about most frequently. Online dating and romance scams, I'm going to talk about a little bit more as well, and variations of those, but they remain in our top 5. And this is something that's been increasing since the pandemic. And again, I'll talk a little bit more about those. Imposter government scams would typically be something that we see as the number 1 or 2 most common scams, but they have been a little bit less common compared to those Amazon scams and tech support scams and different types of identity theft, but still remain, again, a very common scam here reported in Colorado. Fraudulent sales often has to do with fake websites. And so what we hear about, different websites maybe selling something like a puppy or different types of keto diet scams that we hear about. And those are kind of common fraudulent sales that are being reported in Colorado. Sweepstakes prize lottery, again, would usually be higher up on this list in previous years, but they still remain common. But again, where you have to pay money to receive money, any type of sweepstakes prize or lottery scam are still out there looming. Phishing scam, again, people, a lot of these seem to be banks or imposter banks saying that you need certain information to because something is wrong with your account. It might come as a text message or an email or a phone call. But again, people and scammers who are phishing for personal and financial information to hopefully obtain money from someone's account. And then finally on that list, non-stranger exploitation. And this is typically where usually a friend or family member is taking advantage of an older adult and usually trying to maybe get a hold of some of their money. And so again, this is kind of the top scams that I just ran that have been reported to our Elder Watch helplines and Fraud Watch Network helplines in Colorado over the last 9 months. And so I'm going to go into some detail about some of these most common ones and different iterations of the scams that we've been hearing about so far this year. Again, the scam trends that I'm going to go over: identity theft, tech support, computer virus, romance, blackmail scams, different types of payment methods that we're seeing as trends in different types of scams, as well as communication methods that we're hearing about as well, that are transcending scams. So identity theft, you saw, was number 2 on my list. And I'll say that one of the things, what's newer trending with regard to that in 2022 is there's still fallout from the employment fraud that was so rampant in 2021. And there's also different tax fraud issues that are being reported. And I'll just say that so many of the scams that we hear about, no matter what type of scam it is, whether it be a tech support scam or a sweepstakes scam or a scam that's starting on social media, so many of these scams have an element of identity theft in them. And I think it's just really important. I'll say that, on the helpline, the most common website that I'm giving out every day when we're talking to people and that our volunteers are giving out is identitytheft.gov. And it's a great location. You can see it at the bottom of the screen there for identity theft resources, different things like placing fraud alerts and placing credit freezes, also checking your annual credit report, really important things in terms of being proactive around, making sure that your identity is safe. I'll say that, the frustration, especially with all the unemployment fraud, got a lot of people really up in arms about different types of identity theft out there. Also, in addition to that, we're hearing consistent line of data breaches that are happening as part of just everyday life. And just myself, I'll say that I've probably received in the last year maybe 3 different notifications about my information potentially being part of a data breach. And so this is not uncommon. One of the big data breaches that we heard about recently has been for people in the University of Colorado system. And so if you're part of the University of Colorado, you've probably heard about that already and received information about it. But again, these data breaches seem like they're not going away. But again, at the same time, it doesn't necessarily mean your identity has been stolen. It just means your information has potential to be out there, and someone could at some point take advantage of that and maybe use your identity to do something like open line of credit or get a loan, that type of a thing. So being on top of that and doing things like placing credit freezes and fraud alerts and checking your annual credit report, really important steps for anyone who thinks their information is part of a data breach. One other thing that I wanted to bring up just in terms of identity theft is the Colorado Bureau of Investigation. They do have a special group of folks, victims assistance folks, who help with identity theft. And so if you have a kind of a major identity theft issue, I'd highly recommend reaching out to the CBI's victims assistance line as part of the work that you're doing to help get yourself back on top of the identity theft situation. But know that's there. It's a resource that not every state has, and so one that you should know about. Tech support and computer virus scams. I feel like this is the scam that won't go away. And it's a scam that continues to evolve and change, as the criminals who are executing it come up with different techniques. And I would say that a lot of the support and computer virus scams we're hearing about now are more aggressive than they ever have been before. They really are going for the jugular in terms of trying to get into people's bank accounts and draining them. And I think this is a really important variation. I think, I've been doing this work for almost 7 years now here in Colorado. And when I first started, most of these scams were just trying to get $300 or $400 as part of a scam, saying that they were doing support work they weren't really doing. Now they're really just trying to get into bank accounts as much as they can. Another thing that they're also doing that's a little bit different than before, they're posing as Norton and McAfee and Geek Squad. And so different types of tech support companies that people are familiar with, and virus protection programs that they're familiar with. And they're oftentimes sending false invoices. So, if you don't know if your antivirus protection software is up, they're sending false invoices in hopes that you're going to send them money, or in hopes that you're going to engage with them and maybe give credit card numbers or other things like that. So really important to know the variations. It's not just them posing as Windows anymore or posing as Apple anymore, but they still do that. But it's important to know that they are doing lots of other things, posing as lots of other companies, even Amazon saying there's Amazon tech support. So it's a variation of an Amazon, business imposter scam as well. But, again, really important to know that these folks are out here, these criminals are out here doing the exact same thing they've been doing, but just, making a variety of new ways of approaching people in hopes that they're going to either get access to their bank accounts, or get a quick payment. One of the other things that's really happening is they're often using the computer support programs where you can log into someone else's computer program like AnyDesk, where that legitimate tech support uses, but also all of these kind of scammers are using that too to try to gain access against bank accounts and other personal information that might be housed on their computer. So again, lots of great resources in terms of reporting this type of a scam. IC3.gov is the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center, and would definitely recommend reporting any of these scams, no matter how they come to you, to IC3.gov. Romance scams also continue to evolve, and I'll say that one of the things that I think that has caused romance scams to be reported more often now is that these relationships that have been going on might have formed kind of more or less during the pandemic, and the relationships they might have gotten to the point where someone was talking for 3 or 6 months, and now it seems like it would make sense for those people to meet, and it still is not happening. And I think that's when the victims who are part of these scams might be an understanding that this was not the relationship they thought it was. And so I think, one of the reasons that 2022 is seeing more reports of romance scams than ever is because of some of that fallout where someone thinks, oh, okay, well, now we feel safe and I feel okay to travel. Now it's time to meet this person who I've been talking to for the last 6 months or a year. And then they realize that these people still continue to create excuses about why they can't come to visit or why they can't get together, and then they know that it is a scam. Another thing that we're seeing in terms of trends to the helplines are blackmail related scams, and so sometimes folks are getting in having conversations with one another, and they are sending maybe photos of one another that are that might be viewed as not appropriate, and so at that point sometimes these folks will say, if you don't send me this money, I'm going to send the inappropriate photos that you sent to me, to all your family or to your work or to your church, whatever it may be. So we hear lots of variations of that, and this is happening not just with older adults, but with people of all ages. And so, and beginning on different places, such as Facebook, through text, through WhatsApp, through Instagram as well. And so, really important to know you're speaking with, and also not send any inappropriate photos to folks, because their whole tactic in talking to you might just be that they want to try to blackmail you into convincing them uh, that or convincing you that this is all part of an actual thing that's going to happen. I'll say that in a lot of these situations, it's mostly just smoke and mirrors. They're just trying to use that element of fear to get people to send money, and frankly, a lot of people do who have called the helpline. And so, it's again important to know not to engage with these people, not to send money, report them to the platform that you're speaking to them on, and also block them, report them through ic3.gov as well. And in general, though, speaking especially with these blackmail scams, the FBI recommends not sending money to any of them because there's no guarantee they're going to do what they say they do anyways, and they're just going to continue to ask for money in these different situations. So stay safe, don't send any inappropriate photos, and make sure that you're only engaging with people on dating websites or Facebook sites who seem not too good to be true to begin with. So I want to talk about a few things that transcend a lot of different types of scams and how we're dealing with them. And the first one I want to talk about is payment methods and ways of helping to know if something is a scam or not. And so in terms of the payment methods, there's definitely been an increased interest in payment with cryptocurrency. And I think this is really because cryptocurrency is much more accessible than it used to be for folks. There are ATM machines for Bitcoins, and there are ways of purchasing cryptocurrency at even your local grocery store or gas station, often through like a Coinstar machine. And so scammers are able to help people navigate, help their victims navigate how to get to a place where they can access cryptocurrency. And so without just doing so on their phone. So I think it's really important to know that this has really become a trend. And when we kind of crunch the numbers about the different types of frauds and scams, and how they're and what the different payment methods are, we're seeing cryptocurrency really bubble up to the top as one of the most common types of payment methods that scammers are asking for. And I know that I think since 2020, the amount of cryptocurrency scams that were just in our database about different types of scam reports doubled or tripled. I think it's since 2020, it's probably tripled. And so that is a big deal. And it's not widely understood. And so scammers are also, I think, kind of taking advantage of people because they don't know exactly what they're necessarily doing or what they're sending money through when they're doing it. They're just doing it. And again, doing so on your phone or doing so at one of these ATM machines or Coinstar machines, again, makes it a lot easier, and they give you very succinct instructions about how to do it and how to insert your money, and then the money's gone. And also there's just a lot of buzz around it too. People have been talking about it. I think the buzz has been a little bit less recently because the value of some cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin have gone down. So they might not be asking for it as much as they used to, but again, it's definitely still out there. And there are different types of, either what they are is asking for it as a, payment for a scam, as part of a scam, whether it be tech support or a grandparent scam or a sweepstakes scam, or they're also trying to get folks to invest in cryptocurrency themselves, and it might be kind of a ruse in terms of an investment scam. The other thing that we're seeing a lot of still are peer-to-peer payment methods through apps like Venmo and Zelle and Cash App. And scammers are asking for payment, through these methods because it's fast and accessible. And a lot of people are using these types of apps right now, frankly. So it's important to know that, peer-to-peer means you're supposed to be paying money to people who for either a service or paid back. I mean, I use peer-to-peer payment apps, every week for sure, to pay friends for different types of things. A lot of people use it to maybe pay for their haircut, or again, pay for a service or something to someone who and that's what they're supposed to be using for, not for something random. A lot of the scams that we hear about using peer-to-peer payment methods might start on social media, or they start on like a marketplace site like Facebook Marketplace, where someone says, okay, you pay for this and we'll send it to you. And then the item never shows up. So again, important to know that peer-to-peer payment apps should only be used for people who you know, and products that you know will be delivered. Gift cards continue to be something that are asked for regularly in terms of different types of frauds and scams, almost for every type of a scam. And like I mentioned before, with regard to tech support scams, accessing bank accounts directly is something that we're really still that we're seeing more and more of, and it's a much larger problem, especially if they have access to checking account numbers, routing numbers, savings account numbers, even investment accounts that folks have. And so keeping that information safe and taking proactive steps to make sure that your bank information is safe, in addition to not allowing anyone to access your computer with a remote type of AnyDesk or other type of remote service is critically important to making sure that your bank account is safe. And now I just want to talk about a couple of communication methods that we're hearing more frequently in 2022. Text messages, I think, are becoming a lot more frequent. And I think that's mostly because a lot of people communicate via text. I mean, it's less common for people to talk on the phone than ever before, just because texts are so easy and convenient. And so people of all ages are using text messages and most likely probably find them a little bit more trustworthy than a lot of the scam calls that we're getting. And so, text messages are kind of a new way that scammers are going. I'll say that I don't get as many message scams as I do phone calls still, but over the last couple of years, I've been getting more, and I think that's true for a lot of the people when we hear about and think about text messages and the different types of messages we're getting. Text messages often can pose as different phone companies saying you're getting a great deal or half off your phone company, and so that's exciting. You click on the link, and it's not actually your phone company. So that's frustrating. Also, lots of different kind of phishing attempts posing as banks. I'll say, this is one of the common ones that can be very devastating because it says, maybe there was a false charge in your account and then you're very panicky about it. And so you call the number on that text message or you click on the link and give them your login and password or bank account number or credit card number, whatever it may be, because they're verifying your information. And all of a sudden, money is taken out of your account and you're in major hot water. So you can see how this would be something that people could easily kind of get sucked into in these situations, because sometimes there are folks who receive text messages for every transaction they do. And so again, very important to know how your bank communicates and how other type of financial accounts that you have communicate, because scammers are posing as them and in hopes of kind of luring you in through a text message. Social media also remains to be one of the most common places that scammers are finding their victims. And so, it's critically important to avoid contact from strangers when you're on social media. Only engage with people who you know and people who are not asking for personal or financial information as part of some kind of transaction. I'll say that personally, I keep getting friend requests from Bitcoin and cryptocurrency experts on Instagram, and I think it's an interesting tactic they're using because they're trying to convince folks that they can double their money part of a scam. And I think this is one of the scams that we've heard increasing, especially social media. There's also, I know, just generally speaking, from folks who send us their phishing emails. There are better phishing emails out there than they ever have been before, whether they're saying they're from a bank or a shipping service like a UPS or a FedEx, or even the different types of Amazon scams that we see. The ones I mentioned before, the Norton and McAfee, are again, they're using templates that look just like these companies' emails, and so makes you believe that they're them. But it's critically important, again, to that folks make sure to check other red flags, as such as where the email is coming from, and if there's typos, and all those types of kind of little red flags that we notice that might not be a part of a normal company's email. Also, apps with social components. So anywhere, anytime you're in an app that you can interact with other people, there's reason to believe there's scammers out there as well. So again, Words with Friends has been a really good example of how scammers have been able to gain someone's trust and then either engage in a relationship scam or other type of a scam involving with people who they know, who they might be playing Words with Friends with. Even gambling apps or apps that have gaming components, again, where you can talk to one another who's playing on that app, are all places where scammers are also lurking and hoping to get money and personal information from the other people using those apps as well. So just in summary, some really important things to remember with regards to all these different types of scams. Protecting your personal and financial information is important. Managing your phone calls, because scams still are coming in over the phone, even though we talked about a bunch of other ways that scammers and criminals are trying to reach their victims. Doing your research about any type of product or service that you're engaging in, especially if you have not done business with that company before. Avoid contact with unknown entities. If that person if you're not sure about them and you think they're trying to get your money or personal information, it's definitely okay to be skeptical or rude and disengage with that person. Don't rush to act, think, and talk to others. Scammers don't want you to think, and they don't want you to ask a friend, because that friend is going to bring you back to reality about the different red flags that might be being exhibited as part of that scam. Consider unusual payment options a red flag. So if you're paying for something and you have never used that type of payment method before, you're out buying Home Depot cards for the IRS, or you're out at a cryptocurrency machine that you've never used before, or you're told to buy Green Dot cards and you don't know what that is. It's a red flag of a scam, a reason to engage. It sounds too good to be true. It definitely is. Actively seek information about trending frauds and scams like you're doing today. Share your story. It might save someone else down the line, and report so we can take the information that's being reported and put it back out there. Make sure that folks are aware of the different types of frauds and scams, different types of variations of the frauds and scams like we talked about today. So just some quick resources. AARP Elder Watch, you can call us 1-800-222-4444, option 2. Again, we have fantastic volunteers who help out with the helpline and are there to take your different questions about frauds and scams or perceived frauds and scams that you're dealing with. Attorney General's Consumer Protection Education website, stopfraudcolorado.gov. You can follow us on Facebook. We're posting consistent updates about different types of things going on in Colorado and trending frauds and scams to watch out for. IC3.gov, I mentioned before, is the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center, as well as the FTC's identity theft website is identitytheft.gov. In my opinion, one of the best resources in terms of protecting your identity out there. But happy to take any questions if there are any out there. But again, I appreciate being part of this presentation. And for those of you who are viewing this on YouTube, thank you so much for being a part of it. And please reach out to Elder Watch if you need us. Again, thanks so much for being on, and have a great day.